I wish I could visually or audioly salute right now.
You wish you could see sounds? What?
Yeah, exactly.
He wants
Thank you
the
for
audience to
translating.
know how much he respects this song.
By talking over it.
Exactly. I think he gets shot in a certain company for that.
Heart beats true
For the red, white, and blue.
Your acquaintance be forgot, and you're swinging that grand old flag. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Politinkering. Today on the show, we have returning three-time champion Sean O'Brien.
Hi.
I love you so much. Look at you, babies.
And then the pointer count to his pointer count is Joseph Bonier.
Yeah.
Wow.
You got it.
Nice.
I did
Wait,
it.
I don't get an applause?
Oh, sorry.
What the fuck?
Yeah. Wow, felt like second-class citizen there.
Well, I don't. Why?
Wow.
Use,
Okay. You know what?
Man,
It's apropos to our.
Yeah.
Okay.
So today we're handling the big guns. We're taking on full frontal, and we're going to grab it by the balls and swing it around.
Wow.
How are we going to solve terrorism?
Shit.
He dropped it. He threw it on the floor.
Oh my God.
Yep. So, there's people out there and they don't like other people and they like to do
Jesus.
things about that. And, there's many types of terrorists. There's certainly the Trump version of a terrorist. Then there's the Tim McVeigh version of your terrorist. And then there's your Columbine terrorism. So how do we stop all of it?
I think, one, I don't know if there is a way to stop all of it, honestly. I feel like it's always existed in human history. Maybe it always will. The choice is, how do we limit it? And how do we discourage it? And how do we find the root of it? And I think.
How has it always existed?
Well, I mean, it just seems like there's always someone who's trying to cause trouble.
Yeah, I mean,
whether
that's-
in some
that's
way or the other.
Why though?
Pillaging, raping, sacking the village.
Okay, so that kind of stuff is terrorism as
Correct.
well.
I would
Yeah.
classify it. Yeah, I mean that's like
Totally.
fear combat essentially.
Well, okay, so
Genghis Khan.
is there?
Is it an ultimate? Is it big?
Well, that's the thing
Actually,
though.
maybe I'm
Is
not.
there
Is barbarianism? I guess is the better thing.
Barbarism,
I should say.
right? Is
Sorry.
it barbarism or barbarianism?
Barbarian.
You're the writer.
Barbarian. I'm not a fucking writer.
I mean, I'm sorry, the genius.
Shut the fuck up. Okay, is there a distinction between war and terror? Let's just start there. Like, is it an ideological question or is it a conquest question?
Well, that's a matter of perspective because isn't every terrorist fighting a war?
Well,
Yeah, this is
no.
the age-old propism. Wow, I'm going to say another word I don't know how to say. One man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is the
Aphorism.
yeah. Okay.
Is that
please help me.
I don't know. I don't know.
I'm saying
Tell
I
me
need
a
help
word,
to
please.
complete my sentence.
So it's a question of perspective. In other words, well no.
Kind of. I don't know if I agree with that, actually. Go ahead. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, I was simply I was trying to add on what Sean said. Oh God, I don't know what the fuck. I'm like all out of here.
Yeah.
Okay, so if there is no distinction or there has to be a distinction, right?
Between what?
Between conquest and ideological terrorism,
Okay.
right? There is a difference. In other words, if you just want to blow up a building to scare a bunch of people
Okay.
for ideological purposes, right? Versus taking over that building because you want that land. And there's no ideology underneath it, necessarily speaking, other than the fact that I think that land is valuable and I desire it.
Isn't there? Well, yeah. I mean, and isn't there ideology behind almost all wars? Though?
Yes, I think that's a great point. I think that's true. I think it's, and someone much smarter than me said in that other stupid quote I'm saying, is that all war is just another government forcing its opinion on another government in some crazy way. I think it's true. I just think it's almost like, and this is almost bringing me to this idea now, is that terrorism is just kind of a microcosm of it in smaller scale. And maybe we just kind of call it that to diminish it. I don't know. It's interesting. It's a good. I don't quite know the answer as well. I don't know, man.
Exactly.
Can I throw out that? Damn it!
It's
Too
too
early.
Of course you can throw
Damn
it. It's not too early. Anytime.
Okay. Sorry. Okay.
But then was Paul Revere a terrorist? Was George Washington a terrorist? The
Right. So
the
freedom
revolution,
fighters
exactly.
versus
Yes.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, depending on the perspective, yeah. So yeah, one man's freedom fighter is another man's terrorist. Like Guy Fawkes is that that certainly qualifies as terrorism, but that is also
Okay, I want to bring a distinction though.
Mhm.
Civilians, right? That's the thing. Are we killing? And I think that's the war question: is are we killing war combatants? Whatever. I hate using these.
what war
goddamn
doesn't
terms.
kill civilians though?
What?
what war
What
doesn't
war
kill
does not
civilians?
kill
Oh,
civilians?
back in the day, it didn't.
Sure
I mean,
it did.
Napoleon's wars didn't kill. I mean,
They,
okay,
they
well,
certainly
I'll go-
sacked villages and
they
you
did,
know,
but I'm just saying, okay, to a larger extent, World War II changed that, I think, a lot to a larger scale. I mean, yes, okay.
You're saying if you weren't on the battlefield, you
we
likely
can talk
weren't gonna
about Sherman burning, Atlanta. We could go back. There's totally examples of this, but
Yeah.
I'm saying on a large scale, actually, World War II changed that, and I think that war
the Geneva
became.
Convention. You mean?
No,
Or-
I mean carpet bombing of Germany and Japan and nuclear bombing of
it changed our
civilian
perspective on
targets.
that.
We basically said total war. We say, and Germany did this too. They bombed London.
Mm-hmm.
The point is, we're going to try to bomb everything and kill civilian targets because you are a product of our economy and you're creating part of the war economy.
Mightn't
So
that be
that's-
World War I as well, though, too?
Probably, but not to that extent. We
Okay.
weren't carpet bombing and nuclear bombing.
Sure.
London and Berlin.
Right.
Berlin and London were fine. It was on the Western Front. It was a trench warfare, war of attrition.
Right.
But yes, I mean, you're right. It's a gradual scale. But anyway, the point is this: is that when a terrorist kills a civilian, it should be different. I think there's a distinction. I think that a terrorism kills a civilian, whereas a soldier kills,
So
Why
it's-
isn't a terrorist a soldier?
Yeah, it's whether or not you're wearing the flag. Is that?
I think there's an element of honor. I think that it's an old school kind of thing to me. And
Honor
maybe
toward
it's
what?
towards a general a respect of your opponent. I think it's really old. It's really old. It's strange. It's almost like I don't know why.
But
It's like almost like Geneva Convention thing too.
So-
It's like wars do have rules. I think in some way.
Okay, so what about something that isn't necessarily killing, but like the Boston Tea Patty? Is that going to be like?
Yeah.
I tried, man. I tried.
Wow,
I don't know what that
I'm
was.
glad you threw it to that. Yeah, that's great.
The Boston. The fucking Boston Tea
Fucking
Party.
These are pretty good. I mean,
Fucking
I
Boston
can't do
Tea
it.
Party.
It's not bad.
Right on. But
Sorry.
I mean, no one died, but they were taking their rage on the government out against essentially privateers. All the tea that they dumped in the harbor it wasn't owned by the government. It was owned by people that were just being taxed just as much as they were on it.
I'm a big fan of that kind of terrorism. The terrorism with no body count. That's my favorite.
Well, yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's certainly more respectable, or certainly at least tolerable through the pages of history.
But it's the importance and the significance are no less than a war in some ways. The Boston Tea Party we're still talked about today. I mean, that's pretty amazing. I mean,
Well, yeah, but that was also the precipitous for many, many deaths. I mean,
of course. But I'm just saying, as a single act, I suppose, if we're looking at terrorism as a single act,
Okay.
then yes, I think getting their point across and causing whatever political means
Well,
that
the
okay.
Boston Massacre then.
Yeah. But
Right
that-
afterwards is that
I mean,
is
the
that
Boston
terrorism?
Massacre was like what, 7 people? Like,
Sure.
But compared
Nevertheless.
to, but the percentage,
I
might be
mean-
different. But the percentage is
Yeah,
true.
yeah.
But how many people lived in Boston? I don't know.
certainly. I mean, it was a massacre just because they opened on unarmed people, essentially.
yeah.
But
Right.
it's
So
still-
was that terrorism? Or was
what-
that an act of war?
that was the government opening up?
That was
on-
England shooting commoners, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, commoners.
I don't know. You're the history guy.
Well,
Yeah,
no,
I think it was,
the
right?
question is were they soldiers by nature of them throwing rocks at the British?
No.
That's the sort of Palestinian argument.
Yeah,
Like,
this is and it's very, we can go right back to Israel right now because that's what, the argument is for and there's actually laws right now against, and I think there is a law currently that if you throw a rock at an Israeli soldier,
Yeah.
they will consider you a combatant,
Yeah.
whatever it is. And that's the rule. I don't,
Do you think that ought to be the case?
no.
Okay.
I don't.
What classifies someone as a soldier?
Yeah.
then?
Where does that line get drawn?
Wow, this is a tough one.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that certainly we have to be logical in some ways and think about the form of weaponry, and it's a stone. Obviously, it does cause damage, but this is going to be right back to the whole Israel argument about, and this is a good argument about in terrorism in general because it's about one larger power fighting a very, very much weaker power,
Mhm.
but can still cause damage. And do you use your full force against
Well-
the terrorists? Do you
I mean,
do everything you can. Do you bulldoze their homes?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of like the whole crux of terrorism is that you can't fight them as a warring nation. You know, your only option is to pick those little points that you can, do a minimal amount of work to achieve the most amount of mass. Certainly, or the most amount of damage for whatever it is. I mean, it can be symbolic. At this point, the World Trade Center bombings are more symbolic than they were horrific. I mean, if we just talk body count, 3,000 people, like 3,000 people are going to die today pretty much regardless. Like that doesn't really have a whole lot of impact as far as numbers wise, but as a symbol that is, turn the nation on its head essentially. So how do we handle that? Do we just go the full Terry Gilliam Brazil route where we, the bomb goes off in the corner of the restaurant and someone comes and puts a curtain up and we continue eating our dinner? Or, how do we handle that as a society? What do we do? Do we get up and take arms against these people? When someone is shooting up a school, are we supposed to band together? I mean, it's one person with a gun. In theory, a couple thousand students, it only takes a few of them. Some of them are going to go down, but some are going to go down anyways. Is that a righteous way to think? Is that how we should be training ourselves? Or
you're bringing up
forward?
A whole bunch of other issues.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I get on that train.
Yeah.
What do you mean by handle it? Do you mean like kind of emotionally, or do you mean politically?
Honestly, I was rambling and meant everything.
How do we handle?
Yeah, so let's break it down. Emotionally, okay. If we are, again, going back to the Brazil analogy,
sure.
If we are in the restaurant and the bomb goes off and our specific area is not disturbed,
right?
Should we ignore it and go on with our day? Should we try and not let terrorism have its desired effect of terrifying us?
Right. And well, I mean, even take the San Bernardino case, right? I mean, it wasn't. It could have perhaps been it can perhaps be a question of time. In other words, like if it wasn't instantaneous that everybody knew it was kind of terrorists or whatever, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then there was this crazy backlash thing. And I mean, it doesn't help the fact that it essentially was just another mass shooting. So we were like, I get it. So it didn't have the desired effect that the terrorists had because we're like, oh, we're sort of fucking used to this, which is some fucked up shit, by the way. But we don't even have to go there.
Well, yeah,
but
what, one every day this year or something like that? Or
more,
4 every day?
More than one every day.
But that's also questionable because, the news media gets on the cycle of reporting things and, what they consider a mass shooting may not have necessarily been considered a mass shooting a couple of years ago.
Right.
So what would have been local news is now becoming national news,
right?
Which changes our perception of how often things are happening.
Right.
I mean, if you actually look at crime statistics, you are way less likely to be murdered today than you are at any other point in history.
Right, yeah.
And actually, sorry to take us off topic here, but one thing that struck me recently, it's something that's always kind of struck me, but it just got kind of amplified again in this sort of debate that we're having socially, is when you look at the lists of jobs or most dangerous jobs in the country, police officers don't fall on that list. They are not anywhere near the top 10 of that.
Really?
Your construction workers, your drivers, fishermen.
Right.
I've had, probably 5 of the most dangerous jobs in the country.
Holy shit.
And like that it's, and the cop is nowhere near that. Another statistic I saw said that as a human being, in this country, you are, I think it's like, it was a weird number. It was like 5.5% likelihood of being murdered. Whereas if you are a cop, you had like a 5.3% likelihood of being murdered. So, they are, it's pretty much no different essentially, or safer essentially.
Right.
Yeah. So is that,
I guess to be fair, they have a gun.
Right. Yeah.
So
certainly.
it's like,
but
it just by nature is perhaps safer for them, or it's probably the authority. It's not necessarily the gun. I didn't mean the gun. I meant the authority.
Well, they're the ones who should be put in the dangerous situations. They're the ones trained for it.
Right.
Right. But I mean, I don't even know what my point was, but
well, so
I don't know either.
It's fine. We'll go from the first part. How do we emotionally handle it? Can we even possibly predict how we will emotionally handle another 9/11 type of thing? Let's just say, for example, somebody drops, and this is horrible to say, but somebody ISIS whatever gets
scenario.
it right.
Understand.
Gets a nuclear weapon and puts it
more
off
when than if, but yeah.
Could be, yeah, and sets off a nuclear weapon. How do we emotionally handle that?
I think, and this is, well, obviously this is going to be tough, and America deals with this differently than other countries, and it does depend upon, I don't know, whatever. We have American history and all this stuff that jumbled into one, but I don't know where I'm going with this. I suppose, but emotionally, it seems like we react rashly, and we always take this right turn, and I don't know if it's necessarily the worst thing, but this brings us to what's going on with Trump and why he has this crazy following right now and why he's leading in the debates and polling and all this stuff. He is literally center stage on the next and final Republican debate, which is interesting. This is we're talking about the final one. He's literally going to be like this in
like
a V.
35% right now, right?
Yeah, it's set in a V, and he is number one. He's at the point, the apex of the V, pointed towards the viewer on CNN. This is CNN, obviously, not the most conservative, but they know obviously that Trump is going to get them the most views.
It's become a reality show.
It's become a reality show. It's absolutely right, and I think it's interesting to note that America has allowed this to happen, or at least the Republican Party has allowed this to happen. Clearly, I mean that's evidenced.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think, and is it the emotional reaction to terrorism? I think that, or whatever, maybe our mass shootings are part of it. I think what happened to be San Bernardino was a mix of both the current, radical Islam, let's just simply say the current fear of radical Islam in this country. And maybe it's, maybe it's proved or not, or it should be there or not. I don't know. But the point is that it's a mixture of that and our fear of guns right now and these mass shootings, which actually I think started, and didn't start and begin, but I think came to a point at Sandy Hook with the kindergarten kids.
Right.
And that was obviously, and these are symbols. And I think, and ironically with terrorism, we're talking about symbols as well and turning these into symbols. These have turned into symbols of the worst things, the worst parts of human nature in other kinds. But I think my point is about, and I don't know why my point is bringing me to this, but I think my point is that religion can amplify whatever it is that makes us have these horrible mass shootings into something larger.
Well, to broaden that, it's ideology.
Correct.
Yeah.
I think it is ideology in general, but I think
It doesn't have to be religion.
It doesn't have to be religion.
In other words, like a gun.
But let's put a narrow point on it and let's call
Sure.
it for what it is, and it happens to be in this case religion, and a specific religion. Unfortunately, it's Islam. At this specific juncture in our history, obviously at other junctures we've had problems with other religions, but I think it's okay to say that, and I think we need to be that kind of Bill Maher. I know this is stealing his point here, the liberal here, who calls out and shames the ideology in that point.
But I mean, the shooting, was it shooting or bombing in the abortion clinic? I mean, that was Christian.
Right.
I think
that made it even larger. I think
Oklahoma City?
Yeah,
Christian.
Tim McVeigh certainly.
Yeah,
I mean,
I agree. They amplified it.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah, the religion amplifies it, but I still have a problem saying that it is the Muslim or Islamic faith that is the crux of the position. I think there are people exploiting all sorts of religions and all sorts of ideologies, and a small, percentage of those people are actually making headway or making, noteworthy things happen.
Correct.
I
have an argument to this, but
okay.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm just not convinced that it is an overwhelming percentage, or that the percentage of atrocities are higher committed by Islam versus any other specific sect. I think in any large group.
You mean
of
now,
people,
right now?
Yeah, right now.
Okay.
I think any large group of people, there's going to be a certain percentage of them that are going to want to wreak havoc.
So is this the argument? I don't want to.
Well, there's a difference between wanting and go ahead.
Is it crazy's crazy? Crazy's going to do what crazy's going to do, and there's always a certain percentage of us that are going to be in this whatever sect it is, and they're just going to have an outlet for whatever outlet it is. Is that your argument? I'm curious. I
mean, yeah, kind of. I mean, taking that a little bit further, if someone is of the mindset or willing or able to be controlled or manipulated like that, it doesn't necessarily matter if it was a religion or any other ideology. They would have been drawn to that sort of mentality in the first
I agree.
place,
I
or
agree with
open
that.
to that at least.
I agree with that.
So
How and why?
Well, if you're poor and you're in a nation where there is, or not even in a nation, in this nation, if you're poor and you live in the inner cities and you see no way of getting out of that, your only hope is to just do better within what you have. So that's kind of where gangs come in, and gangs are essentially urban terrorists, or whatever you.
Well, are they urban cops? Protecting.
Yeah, no, I mean
Again, there's the difference between
Ooh,
exactly.
freedom fighter.
Yeah, again.
And that's what most gangs were formed for, is to take back or take control of the streets, to get rid of the crime in their section. And then that grew into something that, became a threat to other people.
Right.
So, it's kind of that idea of us versus them. That's something that I believe is inherent in humanity. And whether it was Islam,
kind of a tribalism.
Yeah, I think it's more just, Islam happens to be popular in the regions where people are of the mindset that shit is fucked up and they need to do something.
And it hasn't
Yes,
gone
yes,
through
yes,
a
yes.
reformation yet either.
Correct.
I
think it's a perfect storm, if you will.
Yeah.
Of horrible. It sounds. I don't want to sound horrible here, but it sounds like horrible situations that have gone, whatever it's socioeconomic, whether it's the weather that's extremely hot, which causes people to be more passionate, which is true. You think about people in southern climates, whatever.
Or Summer of Sam.
It's true, totally true. And whether it's obviously the religion, and I'm sorry to bring this back to the point of religion, but I want to. And
That's
I
a
think,
huge part of it.
And I think that
that is
need
the
to.
ideology that we're talking
Exactly.
about.
And I think it's fine to put a point on it. And I do think that there's this point about religion, which has become accepted. I think that's the problem. Is there is spirituality, there's other stuff that will cause people to do these kind of crazy things. But I think that we need to say that religion specifically will cause generally a normal contributing person to society to do extraordinary, act irrationally. Thank you. Exactly.
Well,
do irrational things. And I think
even the belief itself could be argued is irrational.
Correct. And
Thus
it also fosters. Exactly. It's a precedent thing. If you think one thing is irrational and you believe the Bible, you believe the talking snake, what's to say you don't believe other stuff? And maybe that's the slippery slope, maybe that's wrong, but there is other things that will subconsciously tell you that faith overall is a good thing. And that's kind of
Well, it just means it just means that you don't have a way of calibrating your logic among certain things, right? Once the ideology has taken over in every capacity,
right,
it makes it harder. Or it's just indicative of your ability to reason. It takes that away, right? And it's not a question of somebody being stupid versus being smart. It's just a question of somebody. Go ahead. What were you saying?
I'm curious about both either Sean's or either Sean of your religious backgrounds. I'm curious, whether you're raised, and I personally was raised very, very religious. I went to a religious private school, and I'm kind of curious your guys and where you fall on it. And I think whether maybe we should, it helps the listener, whatever, to just kind of get our background objectively to see where we stand if we're biased in some way. But I think that, to me, religion has affected me a lot personally, so maybe that's affected me. But I'm curious. You guys go ahead.
Go ahead, sir.
Go for it.
I'm an atheist.
Your whole life?
No. Well, it's hard to say my whole life. I mean, I was raised. My family was Lutheran. My mom's family was Catholic. My dad's side was Lutheran, but they were all, So I was raised Lutheran. I was baptized Lutheran, I guess, but I don't remember any of that.
Yeah.
We went to church when I was a kid, and my grandma would always go take us to church, and on Sunday we'd go to church. We'd hang out with her. But I never really cared. It never mattered to me one way or the other. The stories were fine. I read the Bible. Everything's okay. Whatever.
Yeah.
I never really bought into any of it necessarily. And then at some point, how did it turn? So that's a great question. It's fun. It's arguably one of my favorite topics. Yeah. Because I never really cared one way or the other, right? And then eventually we ended up going to, my dad would take us to church as well, but he was just there for the music. And then at some point they sort of turned into this new age spiritual thing. Like my mom never really liked organized religion, quote unquote. And my dad followed her in that capacity as well. Like neither of them liked the organization of it and the pomp and circumstance, if you will. And so they turned to this sort of new agey, like, Celestine prophecy thing, whatever the fuck that was. And I was in high school, I guess. And again, I still didn't care. I didn't really give a fuck. And I considered myself agnostic, even though I didn't really understand what that meant.
Yeah.
And then
Just sounded cool.
well, I mean, I what I thought agnostic meant was that you just don't know, which isn't the case. It's not. Most people don't actually know that.
Agnosticism as a whole.
Right.
thing.
Gnosticism is the knowledge part. It just means that, and this is for years. Like I was years, and I eventually thought that agnostic meant it's impossible to prove one way or the other, which is still a positive claim, right? It's still a positive claim. It's impossible to prove, which you then take on the burden of proof. So to skip ahead, essentially, none of it made any sense. And everybody's like the spirituality bullshit, whatever. And I'm like, this is dumb. I don't give a fuck. And it wasn't until, I studied philosophy a little bit in college, and I considered myself agnostic all the way up until only a couple of years ago, when I essentially redefined what my position was, which is, I don't know. I'm willing to hear anything, but the burden of proof is on your claim. So that's an atheist. Essentially, an atheist is atheism. It is the rejection of the theist claim, right? If a theist says there is a God, and you can be an agnostic theist, meaning you don't know if there's a God, but you believe that there is one. You can be a gnostic theist, meaning you know there's a God and you believe there's a God. You can be a gnostic atheist, meaning you know that you don't. Well, I don't even know if you can be a gnostic atheist.
I think I need
I
a
am.
chart.
You're a no. Then you'd be an anti-theist.
Yes, I am an anti-theist.
Okay, so you're taking on the burden of proof.
I
you know
love that
right?
you're talking like this, by the way. I'm so impressed by everything you're saying. I 100% agree.
Okay.
I love it. I'm an anti-theist.
Anti-theist, okay.
I guess you can consider me that. I guess I would say atheist is what I would say.
Just
normally.
to make it safe.
But to
you're
someone
willing
who understands that term, yes, I would say that. I
Wow.
guess in the Christopher Hitchens style.
Sure.
I don't like the idea of religion, and I think it causes more harm than good.
Sure. Mr. Fa, where you at?
Yeah, I'm curious.
you
Yeah,
don't
sorry.
mind.
I don't want to bring this back to me. Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Raised Irish Catholic by my Irish Catholic grandmother. Did all of the, baptism, communion, Sunday school, all that sort of thing. Was, I was a believer in that I didn't know that you could question. Like, it just is. So, it's like when you're a child, it's not that you're whether you're poor or you're rich, that's just what you know. So it's not that you had a horrible childhood because you were poor. It's not that you had a great childhood because you were rich.
Mhm.
That was just, you're normal. So to me, religion was just the normal. That was just kind of the accepted way that things were. Then I saw a little TV show called Dinosaurs. If you guys are familiar, this was
Sure.
That's
a mama.
Yeah,
Wow.
exactly. Yeah, big talking puppet dinosaur Jim Henson
I watched
production.
it.
Yep. One of the episodes, I jokingly point to it as an episode that changed my life, but it certainly had an impact on me as a child, and it was definitely something that made me start thinking. But the episode was called "The Great Potato." And essentially everyone was worshiping a giant potato. And it just kind of made me understand how arbitrary everything was.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess going further into history and, high school, you start to learn things about, other cultures and whatnot. I'm an American, so I've never been to other cultures. I just, I've heard about them. But essentially you start to see that there's all of these similarities between all of these religions, and they all kind of do the same thing, and they're all kind of saying the same thing essentially at their hearts. And there is a sort of overwhelming through line where religion is a tool, a power for, or a tool for the powerful to manage the miserable masses below them.
Mhm.
So for the longest time, religion was
Alliteration going on.
so, well, like the longest time, religion was always considered like very, very mystic. And so, the practitioners, your priests and things were, almost gods because everything that they did was behind closed doors, and they would come out and make proclamations, but then everything would go behind closed doors. And it was all just kind of methods of control. And you see that going throughout all religion for the most part, throughout most of society. There are, there's a couple of outliers there that, are about inner peace and whatnot. But for the most part, I mean, at their core, religion is about controlling masses. So once you kind of see that, I guess where I am now is that okay. So I have a hard time imagining nothing.
Okay.
So to me, death and nothingness is where it all starts. The religion at its core is about answering the question, what happens when we die? And all the other questions pretty much stem from that.
Yeah, where did we come from and what happens when we die?
Exactly,
Sure.
yeah. But I think where do we die is where we start, and then we start to think about, working backwards. I don't think that is the first. I think what happens when we die is the number one priority in most religions. So, I mean, to me, like I said, I have a hard time imagining nothingness. So if I can't imagine nothingness, I feel that there is something outside of this reality. And I don't know what that outside of this reality is. I doubt it's a man with a beard in the sky.
How can there be an outside of this reality, though? How can anything be?
Multiverse. I mean,
sure, but then that's something
that's still a reality.
Right,
yeah. I guess outside of our perception of reality.
Okay.
So, I mean, I'm certainly not a believer in ghosts because we would, with the number of people that have lived on this planet, we'd be bumping into them constantly if they were a thing.
Right. So, like, where did the souls come from in the first place, though?
Right.
If there were only 3,000 souls.
Right. So religion is about establishing what is consciousness, when does it begin, when does it end? Yeah. So
why can't science answer those questions, though? I guess that's what I'm curious about. Like, in other words, religion can be can foster the question, but the answering of those questions, I don't think I think requires a better burden of proof than a story.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It requires evidence, I would say.
Right. And the story is religion. The evidence is science, essentially. And
sure.
It's just there is data on birth and death, but it's minimal. And
what do you mean? I don't understand.
The people that have died for minutes at end and then been resuscitated.
Sure.
There is.
What do you mean by died?
Yeah, and that's a whole nother thing. Like, what is the definition of death? Is it stopping the heart? Is it stopping the brain? Is it stopping all blood flow? Like, there was a time when you had to install bells in a coffin just in case the guy wasn't actually dead. He can ring for help.
So you were saying you
I have no idea
you find it hard to. You're answering the question of what you believe, right? You're saying you find it hard to imagine nothing, which is fine, which is valid. I think that most people have that problem, including scientists.
Yeah.
I still haven't heard you take a step toward answering that, though. So I don't know if you necessarily have a religion, so to speak, in that capacity.
No. I certainly subscribe to no specific religion. Like I said, I come from Irish Catholic and then shed that into somewhere between agnostic and atheist.
You, my friend, are an atheist.
Yeah, well,
I think
we've just gained one more follower.
Yes,
no. I mean the reason I would not classify myself as an atheist is I don't reject everything.
No, that is not atheism. Atheism does not reject it.
It's the question. It's a question of, do you believe in God, or do you subscribe to the idea? He even said it, the ideology of theism. Like,
well, I shouldn't say that. Yeah, it's not that they don't reject it. It's that they don't claim otherwise. They don't claim that there is nothing.
Right.
They just claim that they don't know, and the burden of proof is on. It's just their rejection. It's atheism.
You're making
a
better argument than me. Yes, it's true, but I think that's more agnostic than people would commonly call them agnostic, which is tough to say.
Right, but that's wrong.
I agree, it's wrong, but I think that it's almost this like kind of falsely created subdivision of it.
Well, sure.
Which is interesting, but I think these people actually are atheists, is what you're saying.
Yeah, in
And
common
they're trying-
nomenclature, nomenclature, you and I are agnostic. The three of us are. Well, we are agnostic.
Well,
He's
no,
an
because
atheist, but
I mean, if I had to classify, I would say I am closer to Taoist.
oh wow, okay.
So I'm, I mean, even like the Force, like I have
Energy and whatnot.
yeah.
Okay,
I
sure.
certainly. I mean, I feel that there is some sort of a tally to this universe. Karma seems to be a not a hard truth, but
Sure.
there does seem to be
Perhaps a metachlorian count.
exactly, yeah. No, but I mean, I can't completely discount that, and
Sure.
if it's maybe just even hopeful thinking that the bad will be punished at some point and the good will be, rewarded in some way, I feel that there is some sort of a connective energy, if you will,
Sure.
between, all living sort of things.
Mhm.
So
I won't. What do you mean by energy? What does that mean? I've heard that thrown around a lot for years. And I've never
Yeah.
been able to put a finger on exactly what it means.
And that's the thing. It is indefinable, but it's that sort of, I guess we could, in internet terms, it would be the cloud. So
Okay.
it's kind of that universal consciousness that everything pulls from and gets reabsorbed into.
Okay.
So the idea that, at some point there is communication between me and a tree or me and a rock, at some point, at some universal.
Actually, I kind of agree with you. I want to say that I may be surprising. I kind of agree with what you're saying.
That's really surprising,
I
actually.
I
it's
know.
very surprising
No,
to me as well.
Let me clarify though. Let me clarify. I actually,
think you've
And
ever
by the way,
agreed with me.
just so
no,
we're
for
clear,
what he's
you-
saying about like communication, but I think there might. I think what he's saying. I'm going to redefine it.
Sure.
I want to say. I think there is this. Maybe science can explain it. I think maybe science might explain it someday, and maybe they already have. Maybe it's pheromonal. Maybe it's. I think it's something.
maybe it doesn't exist at all.
Maybe it doesn't exist at all. Maybe it is in our minds, but
Right.
maybe it is. It's something between us humans and the life around us. I think we do have a connection with perhaps a tree, perhaps a dog, perhaps a cat. And we feel that sometimes. Maybe we can feel the fear kind of, or they can feel our fear, that kind of stuff. And we consider it. I think there is some sort of special thing there between other life forms. But I don't think a human and a rock, though. I wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
But I think actually, but it would be considered something in science. I don't
Well-
think that's actually supernatural.
Let me fuck you guys up just for half a second.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you're saying like the connectivity, right? Everything's connected. Do you realize that you don't actually touch or feel anything?
Anything. Yeah.
It's just literally electrons repelling themselves. You're not touching the table. You're not sitting here. It's all empty space. So if nothing is connected,
Blew my mind.
how can everything be connected?
That's the thing. So it's sort of an extrasensory perception sort of thing. And again, I guess this comes from my conspiracy leanings as well. But
Now, look, it can be hopeful thinking. There's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with wanting that to be the case, right?
yeah,
The question is there evidence for it? That's the only thing that's hard for me to wrap my, what's that buzz? Sorry.
yeah, I mean, I know it's cliched to say, but I wish I could believe in a religion. I wish I could subscribe to a theology
See, yeah,
and kind of be that well defined.
I like that idea. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't believe that. I think it's interesting that you do. I don't want to believe. I don't want to have that ignorance is bliss type of thing.
Why? Why the fuck would
Yeah,
you want that?
No,
It's
I don't
fantastic.
like it. I know.
Why
I don't
wouldn't
like
you
it.
want it?
I don't like it. It's creepy to me. I don't like it. I like knowledge. I like knowing.
Sure.
I think it's always
right,
the
but
better
if you're
path.
ignorant, you don't know you don't know. So like
No,
that's where the bliss comes from.
I feel like you somewhere deep down,
that you'd still have
you
that
know.
nagging. That,
you know,
Yeah.
somewhere you're like,
That East
I'm
Coast.
kind of an idiot. Yeah, I know. I don't know. Maybe it's I don't know why. I just don't want that ignorance is bliss thing. Maybe it's just me.
I just assume most of society is
I
blissfully
think you're.
ignorant.
What's
They like compartmentalizing. Most of society likes answers.
I think if they
They like
Yeah.
even if they don't necessarily have evidence for it, it's very difficult for people to say I don't know.
Well, that's
it's
why
hard.
that's
True.
why we have a
That's
two-party
true.
system.
Yeah.
I mean, it's you pick a team and you wave your little flag, and that's where we go.
Yeah.
It-
Well, the electoral college doesn't help that though.
So does atheists need a team?
Atheists don't.
Yeah.
They don't know. They don't. No. They.
I know by
atheists on the
definition
corner.
they hate teams, and but maybe they need a team is what I'm saying, and they kind of have.
Well, it is a team.
They have like an American Association of Atheism or
Sure.
whatever it is,
Yeah.
and it's growing, and I'm sure it's pretty big. But do they need to brand themselves like a religion, and is
No.
in some ways is that against the
Very much
ideology
so.
of it.
It's not a religion. Atheism is not a religion.
But,
Atheism
but
has
in
no
order,
doctrines.
in order
it has
to
no,
conquer
like,
religion, do they have to?
of course
become
not.
one?
No, of course not. That's the exact. How could they? How could a religion? Because they
By doing religious stuff, like.
But
like
if they
having
became a
church.
religion, they couldn't. They couldn't by definition destroy religion. They would be a religion.
They also
How could that?
It's
It just
interesting.
can't.
It's like a political party designed to take down democracy. I don't know.
But
It's
they would still
crazy.
be a political party. It'd be like a political party trying to destroy political parties.
Correct.
So it can't be. It just by definition can't work. But nevertheless,
But they become the ultimate party. Like I guess it's the idea of like the Third Reich is Nazism. Is like they're trying to fuck over everyone and become.
I don't think it would behoove atheists. To answer your question, I don't think it would behoove atheists to.
But is that the atheist goal? Is to have everything?
I think
everyone
Answered?
believing like them. Everyone believing atheism.
That's the thing. Atheists
A world
atheists
without
don't
religion.
believe anything. That's the thing. They don't.
Okay,
Most
but
atheists
I'm
are known as
translating
humanists.
this to, I guess, more anti-theist principles of saying that the world may be better without religion. I thought that might not have to do with the atheistic.
Oh well, no. That's a different question.
message.
That's a different question.
Agreed. That's kind of what
yeah.
I wanted to separate. Is that
Sure.
I'm bringing it to that point.
Sure.
And
So yes, a world without religion,
Correct, yeah.
100%. I would argue would be happier, of course, right? Because then it's
Sean, how do you
yeah.
do you agree on that question?
that a world without religion is going to be happier.
Yeah.
Or better?
Oh, happier. Good
Better,
point. You're right.
Maybe
I
better is a better
misspoke.
question
Better.
overall.
I mean,
It's tough to point a point on it. It's tough to say like human happiness or whatever.
at this point, if we eliminated religion, yes, we would probably be okay. But I think before the last maybe 200 years or so, religion was a useful tool to move society.
Sure,
And,
but we don't need it anymore.
not everywhere, but not everywhere is as advanced as we are.
Why do we need it elsewhere? Why do we need religion anywhere?
Oh no, I mean it's
clear. It's clearly causing a problem right now. That's to bring it back home. That's the problem we're talking about. That's what's
right, but I mean, how do we get rid of religion? That's
a different question.
Yeah.
It's the education.
Or how do we-
you educate someone that it's not a question of okay, so there are certain moral principles, right? That you can and moral truths that you can discuss, and you can have a question of those rather than saying this book says something, you must follow it, right? So that's one step to essentially, I don't want to say eradicate it, but to foster a society of rational thinkers, right? Who don't simply obey for any reason.
Yeah.
They think for themselves, and they consider the options, and they consider the moral implications behind things. They consider truth above all else. They follow evidence where it leads, right? And they're open to any answer, including I don't know. I think that's a start.
this is a science-based government, and I think
humanist,
I
humanist
wish-
science-based
and
government.
I guess it's what the United States tries to do. But I mean, and this is going to sound very, biased and political, but I think that Democrats do, and I think Republicans don't. I think it's the right side of America that discourages intellectualism and discourages science, and that's religion. I think religion does, and I think it's okay to say it. I mean, and we need to say it, stands opposed to science, and it's the opponent of it. And maybe some people can compensate for it, and there's religious scientists, but maybe you guys can point to this.
Why do you think? Go ahead.
I think that there's no way to answer these questions one way or the other without denying the other. It's just that simple.
No, what I mean is, why do you think it is that science or that
Yeah.
religion rejects science?
Because the questions of religion, does God exist, are going to bring you to a point about whether you think science is something to believe in, the scientific method, and believing all evidence-based things, or not. And that's sorry,
Yeah, just getting back to your earlier point of making an atheist religion, essentially. I don't know that it's necessarily incumbent upon them to go that far, but I do think atheists need a PR revamp.
I agree.
You can't run for office in this country and admit that you're atheist.
There's a great statistic about this recently that's been done, and that atheists are the number one thing that people will not vote for. And
Right, of
actually,
course.
Yeah.
it's like socialist is there.
Mhm.
It's like Muslim. Unfortunately, it's horrible to say.
Yeah.
And there's like Jew and like a black person and stuff like
Yeah.
that, and woman. And like atheist is literally
Yeah,
at
it's
the bottom.
It's like 12% or
So
something like that.
what is the rebranding? Is there necessary? Is it the word? It's almost like socialist. Like, and I think
Yeah.
Bernie Sanders needs to conquer this thing to to win because people are going to just simply brand him a socialist.
I think it's not necessarily rebranding. It's educating people on the terms and more people who are atheists coming out to say they're atheist. Right? It's not, and whether they even understand it or not.
Agreed. It's like taking away the stigma, is just saying like, hey, my uncle's an atheist.
Yeah, like I'm an atheist. What's the big fucking deal?
Closet, like
that's what they call it. They call it coming out of the closet.
Should there be a campaign,
do we need
an ad campaign for atheists saying, "Hey, come out of the closet"?
Do we need a
yes.
ribbon?
Yeah, they have like what's it called?
Somewhat religious in some ways, and you can kind of argue it's very,
it's a convention. I mean, is Comic-Con a religion?
Yes,
kind of. Yeah.
There's no doctrines or faiths to it. It's just people gathering together who are of like mind.
Yeah.
In that case, then science is by definition a religion. That doesn't make sense.
No, I don't think
see what I'm
that's
saying?
True.
Well, I'm not. I don't think it's true either. I'm simply basing off your definition.
Of religion.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying your definition of religion. If
I'm not saying it's a religion, I'm saying it has religious tendencies, and
but it doesn't. That's what I'm saying. It can't.
No, I agree. I think it's fine. Okay, I'm all cool with this. I'm cool with them actually slightly acting like a religion in order to. This sounds bad, to defeat it, and I think it's okay in some ways. I don't think they should obviously cross a line in some ways. There's a line.
What line of what? What do you mean? I don't understand.
Yeah, no, they should. I don't like the idea of going to church on Sundays. To say like, let's not.
Let's
worship.
be Jewish and you do it on Saturday.
You're right. Damn. Fuck.
You mean going to a
church? On
everything. So like proselytizing, basically.
Right. Of
like
course.
Okay.
I'm way against that. Of course.
Right.
Yeah. So no. But I'm not against talking. I'm not against discussing the issues. Obviously,
discourse
I'm on
is
a
key.
podcast, and
But that also seems to be a giant sticking point.
You're
in
right.
society today is that you're like I wouldn't feel comfortable talking about religion like this in most other environments.
Right.
Why?
You know, it's especially in in the company of people that are I guess less familiar with you. It's not something that you can go to a bar and strike up a conversation about religion.
Yeah.
By and large,
Sure.
you can do it 20 times, and one time you might get someone that doesn't want to punch you in the face.
Sure.
But it's
a question how you handle it, though. The easiest way to do it, honestly, is just asking, "What do you believe and why?" And then you simply point out the flaws and not necessarily the flaws. I mean, they could all be right, but you simply ask questions. That's it. That's what most atheists, in a sense, at least I hope, do. It's just why. Like, it's an easy way to ask why you believe what you believe. I'm not saying you shouldn't believe it. I'm just suggesting.
But then that kind of gets back to the whole picking teams thing. I mean, once it just gets to the point where once you're entrenched in a religion, everything else just gets drowned out as white noise. Like, you are only going to listen to the facts that support your argument.
Perhaps, but not if you equate it to something else that they're familiar with, right? So you can bring it to a different topic that's analogous to the situation, right? Like where you would require X amount of evidence to believe this, and yet in this situation you don't require these things. Why is that? Why is there a disconnect there?
I think some people, forgive the saying, are beyond saving.
Yeah.
I think that.
No, of course not.
No, I do think that. I think some people need religion so much, or some sort of supernatural guidance or spirituality in their life, that there's no way of convincing them of otherwise. I've tried a lot in my life, and there's a bunch of people that can cut to a point.
Sure.
But there's some people, there's just whatever, 10%, I don't know what it is, 15%, that really do need it for whatever reason. Maybe it's their past experiences, maybe it's their father, I don't know. Maybe it's whatever it is ingrained in their genes, but they need that spiritual answer.
Well,
and there's nothing I can say
no,
that
of
can
course
convince
not.
them otherwise.
Well, exactly, because I think the answer isn't convincing. The answer, they convince them. Most people convince themselves of everything they believe.
Agreed.
You know what I mean? The belief is simply the state of becoming convinced by something, but typically the case is you convince yourself of something based on these different things that you've told, right?
Sure.
So no, are you going to convince someone that God does not exist? No, of course not.
Right.
Can you open up the door for them to be open to following other ways of thinking, period.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that might be an easier way to go about it.
In a larger sense, is that beneficial to society, though?
Yes.
Society?
Well, is
Are
there
we talking Indonesia? Or
is
are we
there-
talking about America?
is there no benefit to religion? So if we just completely annihilate all religion, aren't there side effects there? Aren't there people that are benefited by that existence, by that sort of looming father figure that's telling them
The
not
only
to do
way
things?
to annihilate religion in that sense, it's impossible to do that,
Yeah,
right?
so-
What you can do, however, is train people to think and how to think. You know what I mean? And then
Yeah.
religion is no longer necessary in that case because they're thinking it along different lines. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So do I think it would be so? In other words, yes, of course, people need religion. Of course, they do. But what they need is answers. They need answers to the questions that they don't know, they don't understand, right?
Yeah.
Because it comforts them. It makes them safer,
Sure.
right? And so that's the real problem. Now, at the moment, not all the questions of the universe are answered. If we presuppose that all of the questions are answered, that still doesn't take religion away. It doesn't, because people still need a different thing. They need it's not a question. It's not a sense of answering questions. In many cases, it's a sense of community. It's a sense of whatever. But all of these little issues can be replaced by many different other things. Religion not being one of them.
Certainly, yeah.
Right.
And we can find little things, but I guess my faith in humanity is just so low at this
It's not
point that-
feeling you, man. Trust me. Believe me, I'm in the case. But it's Joe.
Yeah.
You're an anti-theist.
Correct.
This is interesting. Okay. Talk to us about that. We gave you your story.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And it's not actually. I don't really have a horrible oh my god, like a rabbi like punched me in the face. No,
No, I didn't.
As
I didn't
they're apt to
suspect
do.
that.
that's not like a story I'm going to tell. No, I grew up very religious, and I had to go. I was religious Jewish, and I was raised in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I went to a private Jewish day school, which means that you spent half your day learning Jewish studies, such as Bible, Jewish studies, where you learn like a rabbinic type of Jewish law, and how to read it in a certain way, which is another whole thing I could talk about. And then there's and then obviously Hebrew, and then where we had to also wear yarmulkes and kippas, and and speak in Hebrew. We had to learn it, and that was half our day. We also had to learn the normal shit too.
Where did the yarmulke come from? I never looked into that.
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't want to be the Jewish expert here, but I know. I mean,
You are.
I
You just
felt
are. I'm sorry.
It's like that Trekkie thing. I'm already Trek.
Right.
It's bald guys in the desert before sunscreen.
Legit though, honestly,
have no
like
idea.
every now and then I'm like, I could go fucking yarmulke.
I mean, it's supposedly to symbolize like your commitment with God. I think.
Oh yes,
So it's
that's
like
right. I'm sorry.
your-
It's the connection to it.
it's
That's right. I
all-
knew
all
that.
this.
Okay.
I mean,
I
it's
couldn't
the same thing
remember.
with the circumcision. The
Exactly.
It's your commitment. It's your
Right.
thing to God.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to
Commit
interrupt. Go
God
ahead.
before you're capable of choosing that, though.
Oh, you brought up another topic.
Oh. Continue.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh yeah. So, anyways, I think that I was always somewhat atheistic in my senses. I was, and I think that I was always, and whatever you can call it, left-brained, logical, rational. I don't want to. That sounds rude as well. I feel like you can't just monopolize logic and be like,
Yeah.
oh, I ruined logic. But anyway, the point is that I feel like I think it was like fourth grade, and they asked everyone. I think we were just talking about God. Like we had we just had Bible class or whatever. We're talking about, and all these kids came around. It was fourth grade, and we were talking, and everyone's like asking each other, "Do you believe in God? Do you believe in God? Do you believe in God? Do you believe in God?" And they came to me, and everyone said yes, obviously. And I came to me, and I said no. And I was like, wait a minute.
Rabble
Cool.
I didn't know. No,
It just kind of came out.
Yeah, no, I didn't think about. I mean, I thought about it, but I was just like, I actually don't. I guess I just don't. I don't know.
That's
why.
cool, man.
And I just don't. And I said no, and they flipped out. They didn't flip out. They were like, "What?
Right, yeah.
They didn't. You can understand
They
it.
thought they thought you were fucking with them.
From then on, I went in the closet, as you can call it.
Sure.
And I never said another thing, and I pretended.
Yeah.
And whatever, even if I pretended, I slightly bought into it. I tried my hardest,
Mhm.
and I genuinely did. I I prayed and shit like that, and it was tough because I was bored,
Yeah.
and I thought about other shit. And especially in Judaism, you say the same thing over and over. Oh my God, every day, 3 times a day. You pray 3 times a day, and just like Islam, it's a long service. Good God, morning service can be 3 hours, and it's long, and it's prayer in another language, and you have to know the language. Luckily, I was one of those kids who actually knew what the fuck he was saying, so it was kind of interesting. Anyways, point is that when I was like 13, bar mitzvah, they always call it age of reason. I kind of came out of my shell. I started,
They call it age of reason.
I think so, whatever age of reason you want to call it, with
Cool.
your like teenage years, and
Sure.
you kind of think about things your own way.
No, it's interesting.
whatever.
I never heard it.
I think so. But it depends on how old you are. Maybe it could be when you're 8
be
years
40.
old. It could be,
Yeah.
exactly. It could be whatever. I'm just
I'm
saying.
still waiting.
Sorry. You're there, my man.
You'll get your balls will drop.
Then you guys want to cut him off.
So you're 13.
Right. Yeah, so I'm 13, and I basically just decided I don't want to believe it anymore. I don't want to be kind of a part of it. Whatever it is, whether you're being moderate or not, I feel like you're a slight enabler of the more religious of you.
Sure.
And that sounds not appropriate. Maybe, it's not completely true. You're not always responsible for the person next to you or whatever it is. But if you're a moderate and you're, I don't know, supporting it in some way, I couldn't do it. So I tried to rebel as much as a high schooler did, whatever. Fucking, I didn't hang out with the religious kids. There was, the religious clique and the non-religious clique, and I was the city kid and they were the suburban kids. Meanwhile, I'm just a dorky Jew. I am not cool. I am not like from the streets, but they all thought I was. This atheist from Northeast Philly. Meanwhile, they're talking to the nerdy Jew. That was fine. Anyways, so
that's cool. So it was early. It was early for you.
It was pretty early. I figured it out, but then I kind of, and I'll tell you this, I actually do a tribute to a few things. One, George Carlin.
Wow, yeah.
Definitely.
Watched a lot of George Carlin. And then I started watching Hitchens YouTube clips and stuff like that.
YouTube?
Richard.
Oh, you're a kid.
I'm young. I'm only 29.
Yeah. Okay. That's it.
So Richard Dawkins, these guys. I read a couple Hitchens books.
The God Delusion.
Yes, great book. Wow.
Sure.
No great book actually is The Portable Atheist, which
Yeah.
is what you were talking about. This brings it kind of back to your point, was that you were talking about like a moral code that's not quite religious based. Is the fact that no religion has a monopoly on morals. This is a human nature kind of thing.
Right.
And he's got such a great book called The Portable Atheist.
Yeah.
And it's just this list of, whatever, the great thinkers through time, whether it's Copernicus or, what I'm saying? It's these great thinkers through Middle Ages and Roman history and all this stuff. And it's really cool. And it basically got me thinking, I really should reread it now that I'm thinking about it because I can't name a few people. But the point is that
Newton.
Yeah, exactly. But it's great. It has essays from their point of view,
Galileo.
and you can kind of put them in historical context and think about, oh, you know what? There was this sort of, thread of this. It wasn't just, you're the first. And it kind of makes you feel like, oh, you're not the only. Because, okay, for me, I was the outsider. It sounds strange because, I was in a sea of religious people, and I'm the only one who doesn't believe this way. So it was kind of cool to have that, oh, I'm not the only one who believes this way. And I think that was the key. And
so at what point did you turn to saying there is no God? Or was it always that? Was there a scale?
I think that developed, actually.
Okay.
I don't think I would originally say that if you asked me maybe when I was 17, 18, 19.
You would have said you don't know.
Correct.
You would have been atheist.
I'm still
or agnostic,
somewhat I
whatever.
don't know. I guess
Sure.
Yeah, I would answer that on most questions. But I will say that I have trouble believing
Sure.
in anything supernatural. I'm a natural skeptic. Just maybe that's my tendencies.
There's a fun one that I don't know if you've heard is like how do you prove that Hamlet didn't exist? Which, by the way, he did, but that's a totally different story. But it was inspiration for. But how do you?
It was Shakespeare that was made up.
Right. We'll fucking go there. I'll throw down on Shakespeare all day.
Oh, I know nothing other than that he was made up.
I love it.
Come on, John, to thy own self be true.
To thine own self. That's Polonius, by the way.
Damn it.
And it was
Polonius
bullshit.
monk.
It wasn't bullshit. It was just like he's saying it to Laertes, so he didn't actually believe it. He's giving all these like every single little thing that he gives is like a bullshit thing that you just sort of say. There were jokes. He was
I
sort
love
of the
that.
sorry. I don't know how
Everything
to
that we believe about Shakespeare is probably like the opposite. He was probably being sarcastic the entire time.
Well, no, it's not. We'll have a whole Shakespeare episode. It's
Okay.
fine.
Yeah, next episode.
Really? They will? You're going to be pretty quiet on that
Read
one.
up, Sean. Read up. Okay.
homework.
I've read them all.
Hamlet, does he exist?
How do you? Yeah, right. Exactly. How do you prove that a fictional character did not exist?
Yeah, you can't prove a negative.
Right.
Okay.
Which in a weird way
the
is
flying spaghetti monster?
there.
Yeah.
You go. Right. So in a sense that is sort of the antitheist argument in a sense that it's sure you're right. I can't prove it, but how does one prove it? And thus, because it is a weirdly unprovable thing, it equates the sense that you can't prove a God, but that doesn't mean that does help to confirm that there is positively not a God.
I want to.
It's
okay.
Schrodinger's cat. It's the proof is when you die. So you are presented with the truth at the end, but all we can do is speculate at this point.
But if there is nothing, you won't know it either. If there's nothing at the end, you won't know that. You're dead.
Yeah, I mean, that's a semantics argument at this point.
if your soul moves on, right, after you die,
Right.
then you will have cognizance. You will know in a sense.
But then
if
nothing is an answer.
nothing is an answer, it doesn't mean you know. See what I'm saying? Like you can't. If there is nothing, then you will not know by definition.
I suppose I just have a hard time drawing that distinction.
Okay. How do you know?
How do you define nothing?
Nothing.
Yeah.
That brings me back to my initial concept,
Right.
which I don't understand nothing.
Damn it.
What was it like before you were born?
That's the thing. I think it was warm and cozy, but
No,
swimming around in a nutsack.
What was it like before that?
What? I mean,
Before you were a sperm.
Yeah, a collection of
No.
molecules.
What do you tell me? Describe that to me.
Yeah,
what was
yeah.
it like for you?
No, I understand where you're going.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, our listeners might not.
My
All
earliest
20 of them.
memory is like 18 months. That's as far back as I can remember. But
Exactly.
like,
And before that, it was.
Yeah, it's just blankness, or
Or what's another word for blankness?
absence of things.
That's an easy way sometimes.
Yeah.
And you know what? For me, here's a fun thing that I like to think about. Oddly enough,
Boobies.
well, I mean, duh. I almost like the idea that that energy that you're talking about is calorically measured. Right? My skin, my body, all that stuff can be consumed by other living beings.
Yeah,
the
certainly.
soil, worms, everything.
Yeah.
I'm okay with donating myself to that pool again. I'm very lucky and very happy that I have consciousness and that I'm privileged in that sense, and I'm humbled by it.
Right.
So I don't need anything else. I don't care whether I move on or not, because I'm actually kind of happy. I love the wonder of what came before everything, and I'm comfortable with the idea that whatever comes in the end, I've contributed.
And I think that's
really nice, by the way. Just want to compliment
Thank
that.
you.
That's really, no, seriously.
Thank you.
That's really nice. Okay.
I think that does kind of go into my non-belief system, or whatever you want to
Sure.
call it. The idea that at a molecular level, at a string theory level, when we are all just vibrations, we are rejoining those vibrations.
Yeah.
So, if it's just peace, if it's, that the quashing of that inner yearning, that seems to be
Quashing,
the
look at
humor.
you.
See,
Sorry.
I got through that and I couldn't say human. So,
I'm
but,
Most people think it's squash.
whatever,
I like that you know that it's not. I didn't mean to cut
Oh
you
no,
off.
I
I'm
don't know
sorry.
that it's not. I just
It's
chose
not
that
squash.
word.
It's quash.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Right on.
it's quash.
I thought they were both valid, but
They're both accepted. They're not both valid.
see that we can do a show about.
Okay.
An entire show about
Semantics.
Language. I believe
I'm
that
on board.
language is the intent and the understanding.
Lovely.
So if communication is achieved, then that was effective language.
Totes on board.
So
This is like a religion table of contents episode. It's not even like
Literally a George Carlin topic, probably.
That's true. It is.
No, that brings me back to something else I wanted to mention. So the you brought up Carlin, you brought up the idea of stand-up comics, and to me that was hugely influential.
Me too.
Yeah, me too.
Stand-up comedy is the new. I guess it's the closest thing we have to atheist preaching. It's
Wow, yeah.
It's a congregation or a meeting. Like, this is something I brought up on one of the other shows, where Penn Jillette is starting to become part of an atheist community in
Right.
Las Vegas. So he's donated his home to an atheist sort of group that has meetings.
Cool.
So it's like it's a church essentially that meets on Sunday, but it's atheist related. So they have
Do they give money?
scientists.
I'm sorry to
coming.
interrupt you. Do they give money?
I believe there
Our
are
Lady of
donations.
Perpetual-
I'm just curious.
what was Our Lady?
I don't think they have an actual religious tax exemption, which is a whole nother thing we need to talk about.
Oh,
You guys saw
yeah.
the John
That's
Oliver thing, right?
That's a great point.
The John Oliver.
I loved it. I
So
loved
yeah,
it.
John
I saw
Oliver.
it. Yeah,
John
that's
Oliver on
just
his
great.
show created a religion. It was called Our Lady of Perpetual something. Well,
Yeah.
Our Lady of Perpetual
Peace
Hope.
or
Perpetual. It was
hope.
like
It is
exemption.
hope. I think it's
Oh yeah.
Oh, it is.
Exemption. Our Lady.
something like that.
I think Hope is the
Hope is
actual
the
religion.
real one.
Yeah.
I think it's Our Lady of Perpetual Exemption.
Yeah,
I'm
that
not
sounds
sure.
familiar.
But in other words, they formed it and people donated and they didn't have to pay taxes on it.
Yeah.
Then it was like $70,000 I think they raised.
Scientology. I mean, it's
There you go. Right. Did you have more to say? I'm sorry.
Go for it.
I guess to bring it back, I don't even know where we are yet, is ideology.
Right. So does
ideology.
Getting rid of religion get rid of terrorists?
There we go. That's exactly what I wanted to talk about.
Yeah. So when we do finally cleanse this earth of this travesty that is the religious infection, we do we in
I don't disagree.
Well, does that inherently
I disagree with the way
better?
of thinking. I don't think
that was just flower.
I know. I obviously agree. I understand what you're saying. I think you can change the way people think, and once you change the way people think, I think their actions will follow.
So you think getting rid of religion inherently makes the world better?
I think you can make the world better through education and kind of changing the way people think.
Okay.
And that will likely take care of that will at the very least help that's what the Reformation was, right? But that will at the very least redefine how people follow whatever religion is they believe in, and they won't believe something irrationally no matter what it is, right?
So then does that get rid of terrorism?
I don't know. That goes back to our question of go ahead, Joe. Sorry.
I do think yes. I think I don't know if it gets rid of. I think the answer is it will curtail some of it, and that's whatever. Maybe it's the best we can do.
Well, it takes us all the way back. Oh, go ahead.
And I think that what you're saying is even if it's true at the most basic level, if we do institute education, and it's true, the downfall of religion will be a causation of it, or it will downfall in the same association, the same slope, if you will, at the same time, even if it's just a side effect. And that's for whatever reason that you can cause one or cause the other, they will cause the other. It's a causation.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
So there's association, causation, whatever statistically you will. Point is that
correlation.
Correct. That's probably the correct term, I think, actually. But the point is that whatever you do, you get to that point. And I think we don't have to beat around the bush with this. Let's get to that point. I think that's simple. And I think that if we do get to that point, it's going to attenuate is a great word because it's the opposite of amplify.
Stop it, you
sound nerd.
Yeah, it's a sound nerd. Attenuate the atrocities and attenuate the scale of all of these atrocities. And religion does, I think it's a catalyst, if you will, and it will amplify whatever horribleness is in us to create terrorism in general. And I think that whatever we can do to shame them, that sounds bad, I know, but it's true, to curtail it. And I don't know, and I know that doesn't mean like nation building. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with, and that's another topic that kind of goes broad, obviously. Yeah. But it's, whether we can say to a nation, let's start reforming your religion, or how do we promote? I think that's the deal.
Yep, there you go.
Let's put a finer point on it. How do we promote Islam? I'm sorry. How do we promote moderate Islam? And this is a Bill Maher thing he's talking about recently, and it's a good topical. How do we promote moderate Islam? How do we promote a reformation of them? How do we bring up those moderate Islams that are trying to reform them from in them? Because the truth is, we can't do shit.
Yeah.
I'm an atheist Jew in L.A. I mean, what the fuck am I going to do? I mean, obviously, I could join the army, and that would do something. But you know what I'm saying? That's not really the answer either. That's a whole other question. Shit.
Totally.
The point is that I think that I don't know what I was thinking. Go ahead, Sean. Take it away.
No, I was just going to say it takes us all the way back to the very beginning, right? Because we've distinguished between. So we had well, maybe we didn't. But the question between ideology and this barbarism thing that we were talking about earlier, in other words, the nation building, right? So if there is a distinction between those two, right? If a nation doesn't necessarily hold an ideology, right, and we're agreeing upon that, will there still be wars?
I think war and the sense of other is inherent in the human condition.
Right. Okay.
And that's going to manifest regardless.
Right. So religion has nothing to do with it.
Yeah, and that kind of gets back to my initial point.
Me. Sorry, bugs me.
Well, it doesn't have to. It's okay. I mean,
it does. It has everything to do with it.
We don't.
You
have
think
to
you think religion has
Yes.
anything to do with it?
I really do believe that, though. I'm sorry. Yeah. I do believe that.
So wait, then you're saying that you're defining a sense of other as religion, then? You mean, or no? Because I'm presupposing the fact that people all.
I'm going to call it religion. It's a probably you're right. It's a broader definition.
Okay.
I think whatever you want to call it, Third Reich was religion in some ways. It's
Sure.
its own religion.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. Like, I think
There you go.
regardless of what you call it, that entity comes back. It's sort of a
The sense of
necessary
it, yeah.
evil within the human spirit that some form needs to take that place.
I'd agree.
And so I don't think it's necessarily specifically religion. We're just talking about organization and putting people in the same place with a common goal. And I think I think it gets back more to economic and socioeconomic structure and more political class.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. An alien military horde
Mhm.
descends upon us.
Fantastic.
Do you think the world as a whole collectively will be able to bind together because of that sense of other?
Yes.
So in other words, you need a sense of other no matter what.
We
and
need
then,
an enemy. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Now, what if instead of the alien thing, the enemy was the Earth rejecting itself?
Mm-hmm. So,
How
like,
so?
Let's just say climate change, for
Okay.
example, right? So
Okay.
we have a common goal, and that
Mhm.
is this Earth is going to be no more at some
But
point.
so
Is that the same as an other or no?
Well, no, because it's not an imminent danger. It is something that is being passed on. So I'm not going to die because of it. I am probably going to die or be enslaved because of the aliens. So we're talking about generations from now. I'm alive right now. I want money right now. That is a completely different,
Yeah, I agree.
method of.
I was just trying to solve the world, okay, Sean? I knew the answer was no.
Sorry.
I was just trying to make world
I
peace.
just
I don't
wanted
know,
to give you
man.
a big no.
Fine. Then in that case, I don't know, man.
I don't know. Still pretty early.
Rainy
This song
Los
is so
Angeles night.
long. Is it early? What's early? All right.
10.
Right on.
I don't know, man.